Family dinners with my in-laws were never pleasant, but I never expected one to end with my mother-in-law trying to publicly humiliate me by uninviting me from their exclusive family cruise. Of course, she had no idea that she was actually making a fool of herself. After all, how could she know that the luxury cruise line she was bragging about had been in my family for 3 generations? I'm Sophia Anderson, 28 years old, and this is the story of how my mother-in-law's attempt to exclude me from a family vacation backfired in the most spectacular way possible. Growing up as the daughter of James Anderson, owner of Royal Crown Cruises, I learned early on not to flaunt our family's wealth. Dad always said that true class isn't about showing off what you have, it's about how you treat others. That's why I chose to work my way up through different departments of our cruise line, learning every aspect of the business from the ground up. I met my husband Michael at one of our ports 3 years ago. He was working as a marine biologist, conducting research on coral reef preservation, one of the environmental initiatives our cruise line was supporting. What drew me to him was his passion for his work and his complete disinterest in material wealth. When we started dating, I didn't tell him about my family's ownership of Royal Crown Cruises. I wanted him to know me as just Sophia, not as the cruise line heiress. Michael was everything I could have wanted in a partner: kind, intelligent, and genuine. His family, however, was a different story entirely, particularly his mother, Victoria. From the moment we met, Victoria made it clear that she found me lacking. "Oh, you work for a cruise line?" she'd said during our first meeting, her nose wrinkling as if I'd said I cleaned fish. "In what capacity?" "Customer relations," I'd replied, not mentioning that I was actually the director of guest experience for the entire fleet. Victoria had simply sniffed and turned away. Michael's family wasn't wealthy, but they desperately wanted to appear so. Victoria was constantly name-dropping and talking about luxury brands, while her husband Thomas quietly paid off their credit card debt. Michael had distanced himself from their materialistic lifestyle, which was one of the things I loved about him. When Michael and I got married last year, we had a simple ceremony on one of our small private islands. Though I told his family it was just a quiet beach wedding, Victoria complained endlessly about the lack of extravagance, never realizing she was standing on property worth more than she'd see in 10 lifetimes. "Really, Michael," she'd sighed during the reception, "couldn't you have chosen somewhere more prestigious? I'll have to tell my friends it was a destination wedding just to save face." Michael had squeezed my hand under the table, and we'd shared a private smile. We'd agreed early in our relationship that we'd keep my family's ownership of Royal Crown Cruises private, at least until his parents showed they could handle the information responsibly. That moment hadn't come yet. Instead, Victoria had spent the past year making increasingly obvious hints about her disappointment in her son's choice of wife. She'd send me links to job postings for better positions, suggest expensive clothing stores I might want to consider shopping at, and make comments about how some people just don't understand the importance of maintaining appearances. I took it all in stride, partly because Michael was worth it, and partly because I knew the truth would come out eventually. I just didn't expect it to happen quite the way it did. Last week, Victoria invited us over for a family dinner. She was practically buzzing with excitement as we sat down at her carefully arranged table, complete with rental china she was trying to pass off as family heirlooms. "I have wonderful news," she announced once everyone was seated. "Thomas and I have decided to treat the family to a luxury cruise." My ears perked up at this. I knew every cruise line's itineraries by heart, and I was curious which one she'd chosen. "We've booked the Royal Crown Cruises Mediterranean voyage," she continued, shooting me a smug look. "It's the most exclusive cruise line in the world. You know, they don't just let anyone book with them." I had to bite my lip to keep from laughing. While it was true that our cruises often had waiting lists, it was because of our commitment to exceptional service and environmental responsibility, not social exclusivity. "That's wonderful, Victoria," I said carefully. "When is the cruise?" "Next month," she replied. "We've booked the owner's suite. It's the very best accommodation they offer. I'm sure you've never seen anything like it." I definitely had seen it. I'd helped design the latest renovation of that suite last year, but I just smiled and nodded. "The thing is," Victoria continued, her voice taking on a tone of false sympathy, "we could only book one suite, and it's really meant for immediate family." "Mother," Michael interrupted, his voice warning. "No, let me finish." Victoria held up her hand. "Sophia, dear, I hope you understand that this needs to be just family. You can surely find something to do while Michael enjoys some quality time with his parents and sister." The table went silent. Michael's sister Emma looked uncomfortable. while his father Thomas suddenly became very interested in his water glass. "Are you uninviting my wife from a family cruise?" Michael asked incredulously. "Don't be dramatic, darling." Victoria waved her hand dismissively. "She wasn't really invited in the first place. I mean, she works for a cruise line, she can probably get her own discount voyage somewhere more suitable." I could see Michael getting ready to explode, but I placed my hand on his arm. This was my moment. "You're right, Victoria," I said, pulling out my phone. "I do have some connections in the cruise industry. In fact, I dialed a familiar number and put it on speaker. Royal Crown Cruises Executive Office. How may I help you?" My father's voice came through clearly. "Hi Dad," I said sweetly, watching Victoria's face. "Remember that Mediterranean cruise booking for the Harrison family next month? The one in the owner's suite? I'm afraid we need to cancel it." The silence in the room was deafening. Victoria's face had gone from smug to confused to horrified in the span of about 3 seconds. "Dad?" she whispered. "Of course, sweetheart," my father replied. "May I ask why? The owner's suite is your personal cabin. Did you and Michael decide to use it that week instead?" Victoria made a sound like a deflating balloon. "No, actually," I continued, maintaining eye contact with my mother-in-law. "It seems there was a misunderstanding about family invitations. I wouldn't want anyone to feel uncomfortable on their cruise." "Understood," Dad said, and I could hear the smile in his voice. "I'll have their deposit refunded immediately. Will you be joining us for the board meeting tomorrow?" "Wouldn't miss it," I replied. "Thanks, Dad. Love you." I ended the call and placed my phone back in my bag, then took a sip of water while everyone processed what had just happened. Your father, what?" Victoria stammered. "Oh, I'm sorry," I said. "I thought you knew, since you seem to know so much about Royal Crown Cruises. My father is James Anderson, the owner. I'm not just an employee, I'm the director of guest experience and heir to the company. That owner's suite you booked? It's actually my personal cabin, reserved for my family's use. I was going to surprise you all by upgrading your booking to our best family package, but since I'm not family enough to be included." Michael was trying desperately not to laugh. Emma had her hand over her mouth. Thomas looked like he wanted to sink through the floor. Victoria opened and closed her mouth several times before managing to speak. But you work in customer relations." "I do," I nodded, "along with operations management, environmental initiatives, and strategic planning. Dad believes in understanding every aspect of the business, something about maintaining appropriate standards." The irony of her earlier comments about standards was not lost on anyone at the table. Victoria pushed back her chair suddenly. "I need to. Excuse me." She practically ran from the room. Thomas cleared his throat. "Sophia, I am so sorry, we had no idea." "Of course you didn't," I said kindly. "We kept it private because we wanted to be treated normally. Michael loves me for who I am, not what I own. That's all I wanted from his family too." "I can't believe Mom tried to uninvite you from a cruise you own," Emma said, finally letting out the laugh she'd been holding in. "This is better than any reality TV show." Victoria didn't return to the dinner table that evening. We heard her upstairs, alternating between crying and making phone calls, probably to all the friends she'd bragged to about her upcoming luxury cruise. As we were leaving, Thomas pulled me aside. "Is there any way to, could we possibly? The cruise booking?" I smiled. "I haven't actually cancelled it, but if it's going to happen, some things need to change." Over the next few weeks, Victoria underwent a remarkable transformation. Gone were the snide comments about my job and the not-so-subtle digs about social status. Instead, she became almost comically polite, constantly praising Royal Crown Cruises and awkwardly trying to show interest in my work. "I read an article about your coral reef protection program," she mentioned one day, clearly having done some homework. "It's very impressive." "Thank you," I replied. "Would you like to learn more about it? We're actually doing some exciting new research." Slowly, painfully, Victoria began to realize that her obsession with status and appearances had nearly cost her family an amazing opportunity not just for a luxury cruise, but for a real relationship with her son and daughter-in-law. A month later, we all boarded the Mediterranean cruise together, Victoria, Thomas, Emma, Michael, and me. I'd kept my word about upgrading them to our best family package, with connecting suites and VIP access to all the ship's amenities. On our first night at sea, we had dinner at the captain's table. Victoria was uncharacteristically quiet as she looked around the elegant dining room. "Sophia," she finally said, her voice softer than I'd ever heard it, "I owe you an apology. Not just for the dinner incident, but for everything. I've been so focused on appearing wealthy that I couldn't see what real class looks like. Which is what? I asked. Treating people with respect, she replied, like you and your father do. I've been on this ship for less than a day, and I've seen how the crew looks at you not because they're afraid of you or impressed by your title, but because they genuinely respect you. I reached across the table and squeezed her hand. Welcome to the real family business, Victoria. The rest of the cruise was transformative for all of us. Victoria stopped trying to impress everyone and started actually enjoying herself. Thomas revealed a surprising talent for karaoke at the ship's nightclub. Emma fell in love with our marine biology program and ended up applying for an internship. And Michael? He just smiled and said, I told you they'd come around eventually. Now, 6 months later, our family dinners are actually pleasant. Victoria still occasionally slips into her old habits, but she catches herself quickly. She's even started volunteering with some of our cruise line's charitable initiatives. Last week, she called me in tears. Sophia, I just found out that Margaret Stevens, my friend who's always bragging about her wealth, she's booked a cruise with one of our competitors. I noted her use of our competitors with amusement. And this is upsetting because Royal Crown is so much better, their environmental record is terrible, and I heard they don't treat their staff well at all. Couldn't you help me get her a booking with us instead? I want her to experience a real luxury cruise. I smiled into the phone. You know what, Victoria? I think I can arrange that. Later that evening, as Michael and I were having dinner in our home overlooking the harbor, he asked me if I ever regretted not telling his family about my background sooner. Not at all, I replied. Everything happened exactly when it needed to. Your mother needed to learn that lesson about real class and status. And the fact that you got to dramatically reveal everything at that dinner had nothing to do with it? He teased. Well, I grinned. I won't say that wasn't satisfying, but the best part is that it led to actual change. Your mother's finally understanding what my father always taught me. True luxury isn't about showing off or excluding others. It's about creating experiences that bring people together. Michael raised his glass. To family cruises? To family cruises, I agreed, and to mothers-in-law who learn their lessons. We're planning another family cruise for next year. Victoria's already making lists of activities she wants to try, without a single mention of what other people might think. Thomas is excited about the new golf simulator we're installing. Emma's going to join us during her break from the marine biology program. And me? I'm just happy that my family, both the one I was born into and the one I married into, has finally found its balance. The owner's suite that Victoria tried to exclude me from? We've renamed it the family suite. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even, it's about making room for everyone at the table, even those who once tried to keep you away from it. Dad still gets a chuckle out of the whole story. He's even used it as an example in our company's customer service training, though he changed the names to protect the reformed. Remember, he tells new employees, every guest on our ships deserves to be treated like family, even if they're not technically the owner's daughter-in-law. Victoria overheard him saying this once during a ship tour and actually laughed. I deserved that, she admitted, but I'm learning. Yes, she is. We all are. And our next family cruise? It's going to be amazing because this time, everyone's truly welcome.